So just to start with then, Saskia, how has your campaign come about, and what are some of the key issues or problems you've been dealing with, and also if any of that has changed during COVID, which may or may have not. Thanks.
Thanks very much, and thanks for inviting Focusing 15 to speak at the meeting. I think what Law for Life do, what you've done for our campaign already has been amazing, so thanks. Yeah, you kind of touched on it slightly already. We started in 2013, and we started from a hostel, which is called Focusing 15 Hostel. It was a temporary accommodation hostel for vulnerable young people. And we started because there was a funding cut of £40,000 to the mother and baby unit of that hostel, which actually is quite a small amount of money. And that cut meant that they said they have to close this unit of the hostel, and all of the young mothers that were in that part of the hostel were given eviction notices for the same date. And they were told your housing offer will be in Birmingham or Manchester or Hastings. And so that was in October 2013, and that's how we started. And so we centrally started around that immediate issue of trying to get people rehoused, and also highlighting the fact that the council was trying to send vulnerable young mothers outside of London. And also that some of the, like a woman, for example, her due date was the eviction date. So it was very shocking. And yeah, we started from that about 7 years ago. And from that point, really, we have grown to discuss like wider issues out of necessity. So through the struggle of that initial fight, we then found out about the kind of swathe of social cleansing that was happening, because we were going to the housing office. And we chatted to people in the housing office, and we discovered that everyone there was being sent away in the same day. We've really discovered the huge amount of bullying that you find in housing offices, the threat of social services being used against particularly mothers. If they don't accept this accommodation outside of borough, then their children might be taken off them. And another central point that our campaign has really rallied around is the fact that there are so many empty homes across the borough of Newham, where we operate, but centrally across London and across the country. So at the same time that we're kind of pointing out these horrific things that are happening, we're also trying to point out that there is a logical solution, and also trying to examine why that solution isn't being brought to the table. Like, what are the ideological reasons behind it? During COVID, obviously things have been a lot more difficult. Maybe we'll go into it a little bit more in a minute, but one of the central things our campaign does is that we are on the street every single week, in the same spot, meeting each other, meeting new people, speaking to people. And obviously during lockdown, we couldn't do that. Not just that, we almost felt like we had an obligation for our wider sphere of people to kind of keep going in what was quite a difficult time. And so the challenge was big, but we basically just went online. But maybe we can talk about that a bit more in a minute.
Thank you, Saskia. Thank you. Very powerful. Yeah, just over to LRU now. Whoever of you wants to.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I'll start. I'm Jacob. I have been with the LRU since it was founded a couple of years ago. It came about through a sort of convergence of people who had already been involved in housing activism, and they recognised that there was a bunch of local groups who were doing great stuff, but there was kind of a scale issue. It felt like they were often losing because they simply didn't have enough power, because the problems were at such a sort of high level. So these people wanted to create something bigger, something bigger scale. What they also wanted to do was sort of move outside of a certain activist scene, mostly fairly white and middle class and so on. And so there's always been like a big mission of LRU to sort of go beyond that and like, I'll just say that I went on radical housing network marches in the past, and they're always great and for a great cause, but I would sort of see the same people at them over and over. So like the idea was to grow bigger and to expand, and so the idea of a membership organisation was created, and people were really into the idea of sort of radical community organising. And that means like going out into the community and finding people there, and constantly growing your organisation. What it's also aiming to do is to kind of address the housing problems on a more structural level, not just kind of this landlord is behaving badly. Let's make trouble for them on behalf of our member. Although we very much do that, but the idea is that alongside like working on people's individual housing problems, which we always try and turn into a sort of collective thing, like usually based around the branches, like work on people's problems together, like move to action if we feel it's appropriate. As well as all that, we kind of want to be sort of thinking about the wider problems, about like housing being, this commodity in a market rather than something that's primarily there to actually house people.